Hello everyone! I'm back, y'all! Oh god, that was terrible. Okay, I'm gonna make that full screen, close that, put that to full screen. Okay, we're back with Mordheim. I know it's been a bit of a wait, but these videos are gonna be good. They're gonna be better than they were before, because I've got a sweet-ass microphone that I'm recording this on, and I'm this close to buying the proper version of Elements, so you're gonna get better stuff. And you're gonna get better videos. You're gonna get better sound quality, and everything. So I'm recording this over a capture I took of a game I had against Matt, who you may know as Noodles, who you may know as Kairos. But yeah, he asked me for my assistance in helping him become a better Mordheim player. You're going to hear us talking in the background. I'm going to be talking over the top, so hopefully it's not going to be too bad, because the microphones we were using are fairly quiet. There was no way to separate them. I thought I'd turn the recordings off, actually.
This is the shittiest, deployment system. Fuck!
There's Noodles being his usual salty self. So this should hopefully be a bit of a Mordheim masterclass for you all, because Mordheim does have
space that isn't completely shit or 50 miles away from where I'm supposed to be.
This is Mordheim's got a pretty steep difficulty curve, as you can possibly appreciate. The tabletop game had a pretty steep difficulty curve, and so does the video game.
Isn't it tab for the map?
No, it's middle mouse button. But thank you for asking that question, Noodles.
Okay, it's middle mouse button.
Anyway, so yes, this should be a bit of a tactics masterclass. So we're doing an ambush scenario because it was randomized. We didn't choose it.
What? No, go over there.
I'm ambushing Noodles. He's setting up in the center in those two buildings, and I'm setting up around him.
Don't place the beacon.
Noodles is struggling to place his warriors because he doesn't realize he can't click to place them. I've said this many times before, but the Mordheim
placing beacons everywhere.
The Mordheim deployment system is not great. It is...
Yeah, isn't that... No, I'm trying to get my guy. I want him to go to this spot. How do I get him to go there?
So he needs to actually select where the deployment area with the A and D keys. He can't just click on the over map on an area of deployment, which I think would be a really easy thing to implement, but they haven't done it. So sorry this is a little bit tedious. The deployment will be over shortly. The game itself isn't that long. I think you can see that the video is only about 15 minutes long, or 18 minutes long, so yeah. So first things first, in an ambush scenario, this goes for every single warband, not just Skaven, but it's important for Skaven especially. In an ambush scenario, if you're the ambushee, the person being ambushed, you need to make sure that you use the buildings you're being deployed in as effectively as possible. Because line of sight is one of the biggest downfalls of an ambushed army or an ambushed warband. You want to make sure that the enemy army or the enemy warband can't see most of your warriors, because that way they can't formulate a strategy. They need to defeat you, but they don't know where any of you are. That's why I find leaving one of your warriors out as bait, and then leaving the rest of them be concealed in the buildings is an effective strategy, because that way the enemy, especially the AI, because the AI is good, but it's not, as sophisticated as a good human player, it will crowd around that single warrior that it can see, and you can lure them into ambushes and basically fight on your terms. Now, Noodles is making a pretty big mistake here. He's going to deploy both his hero, his Youngblood, and his captain directly in front of my cart. Now, at the time...
Alright, fuck, finally.
He's already deployed his warriors. At the time, he didn't know that my warriors would be around my cart.
Never done this mission before, so...
It's a fairly safe assumption that you're going to have...
It's always just been, you're scattered around your warband, your, tent thing, and I have to go and get you.
it's a pretty safe assumption that there's going to be warriors around the enemy cart, because losing your totem that is stolen from the cart is pretty deleterious to your morale, so you want to protect it. So even if you're deploying first, you'll know that the enemy will probably have one or two at least warriors around their cart. In this instance, I have 3, because I saw that he placed his captain and his young blood right in the line of fire. And that's a mistake for 2 reasons. One, the captain is usually the warrior with the highest morale, or the highest leadership, which means when if he falls, it has a very strong negative effect on your warband's overall morale. And that means you're going to get closer and closer to breaking point and almost certainly run away. And we'll see that in a few minutes' time.
One?
The other thing is, you never want to be outnumbered. Once again...
How would I know that you put your guys there?
So I'm just explaining to him why he would know that I'm putting my warriors there. Basically what I just said about there's going to be enemy warriors around their cart, because that's just sensible. But you always want to outnumber your opponent if you can. So he's going to move his young blood in and attack my hero, which isn't a bad move necessarily. If she was the only hero there, that would have been perfectly fine. The problem is, and that's a good start. The problem is I had offense points left over, so I could counterattack, and I stunned him quite luckily. The other thing is I've got 2 other warriors who are ready to attack, and he's going to move in and attack my hero again, which once again, not necessarily a bad move in other contexts, because he's outnumbering me. That's actually what you want to be doing. But he could see my Sister Superior and my other warrior there, and he still moved in. Now, that's a novice mistake. You never want to have, especially your captain, be fighting multiple opponents unless your captain is immune or is very likely to pass all alone checks. And is basically, you've built them to excel in multiple combat. Under any other circumstances, don't do it, because although your leader is incredibly capable and incredibly powerful, even at the start...
Well, I have my other guys, but yeah.
They aren't invincible. And they're most of the time, they're going to knock off a huge chunk of your morale when they go down. So we'll see that in a second. The second thing I should mention is you should really always give your ranged units hand weapons and shields, because they will get into combat. The ranges on their weapons aren't that long, and unless you're on, up higher on a building and there's no easy way to get to you, you're not going to be able to shoot with impunity at enemy warriors. They're going to be able to move in and attack or charge you.
Some sort of mentally handicapped gunner.
Noodles' gunner just fell on his face.
Just fell like 2 feet and took way too much damage. Nope.
Alright. And here's the reason why...
I gave him a gun. And now he's... Okay.
So yeah, he didn't... Noodles didn't give his gunner a hand weapon and shield, which means he has to flee now. He doesn't have any other option. Because he can't really fight me in close combat effectively. Whereas if had he given him a hand weapon and shield, really the ranged weapons are a way of supporting warriors that are imminently about to be get into combat, and picking off taking off a couple of wounds off of enemy warriors before they get into combat with you. That's what they're for. You can't really, unless you do very specific things, you can't really make your warband entirely ranged and expect it to do well unless you do things in a very specific way.
That young blood's so down.
Now, I've been pretty unlucky in this this combat because I've had some pretty high hit rates, and I've been missing quite a bit, which is to Noodles' advantage.
A new round has started.
Sadly, it doesn't work out anyway. Don't know why I can't fit through there, but whatevs. The other thing, like, you never want anyone out by themselves, and you always want to have your warband in a state of readiness and a state in which they can
my
move
young
in.
blood leader die, I fail.
And
I lose anyway because of morale.
They can support each other even though they start off separately.
Because that's what happened to me last time.
If that makes sense. Now, there's a big problem. He's fighting 3 warriors. He's failed his all-alone check.
Attack.
He can't attack at all. So all he can do is carry. He could have killed that hero if he had passed that. And that would have evened things up quite significantly.
What? I bought 3 of these guys, and only 2 of them are here.
The other thing is, you should know how the game works before you start playing it. So at the start, you're limited to deploying 5 warriors in a skirmish, and that will gradually increase as your warband's level increases. But at the start, you can only deploy 5. So even if you buy 7 or 8 warriors, 3 of those or 2 of those warriors will be in your reserve. Which is important because if some of your warriors go out of action, you can still field a full roster. But it's important to know that because you may have been relying on having a certain number of warriors for your strategy, and now you have to change it. Now, as you can see, he's now having to withdraw, and I got a free attack against him. Now, as it happened, it worked out because I didn't hit him in the back of the head and he hit me. But, I mean, I think we can all agree that it's much better to just not have to flee in the first place, and provoke that extra attack.
Rest in peace, my guys.
There's Sigmar's Might again, always a good one. This is actually the first ever time I've played with Sisters of Sigmar, and they're pretty good. They're slow, they can't jump or climb, but they can almost all of them can wear heavy armor, and they're tough. They're tough as nails. So it's good times for everyone. Down goes the captain. Now notice up the top left-hand corner of the screen just how much his morale has gone down. That's a significant drop. Because your morale is the cumulative amount of all the leadership values of your force. So we could see that the captain had a leadership of 8, which in this sense represented a third of his morale total. That's a significant amount, and he's just lost that because he moved his captain and his youngblood in, and now he's being outnumbered significantly. Like, I've got 4 of my 5 warriors into 1 of his. That shouldn't happen, and it's not Noodles' fault because Noodles is a new.
What faction is Sigmar?
Noodles is a new player, and this is what learning to play Mordheim is about. It's about learning these things, and fortunately or unfortunately, based on your perspective, it doesn't hold your hand. It doesn't, like, the tutorials are good in teaching the very basic stuff, but they don't really teach you strategy and tactics, especially since each warband is so diverse in the terms of tactics and strategies that it uses and is most effective at using. You'll play a Sisters of Sigmar's warband entirely differently from Cult of the Possessed Army or a Skaven warband. And that diversity is great because it adds sort of the replayability. But it also means that each time you start a new warband with a new faction, you sort of need to learn new strategies and new tactics. It's not just about going, well, what worked for me in the past will work again. That's not necessarily true. But, it's a challenge, and like all challenges, once you've succeeded, it's very, very satisfying.
No joke, how fucking close do I need to shoot somebody? This is ridiculous.
As you can see, Noodles is being salty at how close he needs to shoot. once again, a reminder that this is why giving your ranged units hand weapons and shields is always important. I'm going to get overwatched in the boob. Yeah, straight in the boob. And then I decide that it's probably not a good idea.
Do it! For Sigma!
But Noodles wants me to go balls deep, or, I don't know, ovaries deep, I guess is the female equivalent of that saying, so...
I see you.
Not going to do that. Now this young blood's about to get wrecked. Except he dodges the first attack, which is nice. Unfortunately for him, I have two. Unfortunately for me, I missed with both. See what I mean about missing all these really high chances? But, as I've been saying repeatedly, it's a dice game. And if you don't like random chance, it's not the game for you. Which is fine. But it's always good to know that going in.
Critically low, is it?
Yeah, so I just killed the Youngblood, who probably had the second highest leadership in the warband. And now Noodles' leadership is critically low, so we expect him to...
A new round has started.
We expect him to fail his route test. And if not, well, we also outnumber him 5-3. And his two most powerful warriors have been put out of action. Because I think a broader lesson here is that your most powerful warriors are obviously your most powerful warriors, but they aren't invincible, and you need to use them appropriately. So I'm just going to pause the video here and just have a little bit of a chat to you about what we just saw, because the rest of it is just a discussion of when we're going to do a practice game next. So, what did Noodles do wrong? He put his two most powerful warriors in an area where they couldn't be supported and they were likely to be outnumbered. He didn't give his ranged warriors hand weapons and shields, so his ranged warrior was forced to flee from my sister and provoke an attack of opportunity, which may well have either stunned him or just done a significant amount of damage. He allowed his captain and his Youngblood, his two most powerful warriors, to be outnumbered, and that significantly and negatively influenced his ability to keep his captain alive in particular. And as a result of losing his captain first, his morale dropped significantly, and the Youngblood, after he died as well, or went out of action as well, his morale dropped below that critical value, and he started having to take route checks. So, if we were to play this scenario again, but in reverse, so Noodles is playing Sisters of Sigmar and I'm playing the Mercenaries, for a start I would have given the handgun or a hand weapon and shield, but in terms of tactics in the game, I would have used the verticality of the battle map a lot better. As you can see, actually, I might just rewind and I'll show you what I mean. So if we go back to the deployment, so here we go. So I deploy on the outsides of these two buildings, and these two buildings here are both about 3 stories high. Now, Sisters of Sigmar can't jump or climb very well, especially since I gave most of them heavy armor. And Noodles could have taken advantage of that by deploying his entire warband in one of these buildings. Say, for example, there are several buildings in which you can only access certain areas by jumping or climbing. He could have put his handgunner up in one of those and shot me in the face without fear of significant reprisal. So that's one thing. I would have used the verticality of the situation. The second thing I would have done is, although I can't be sure, it appears as though Noodles deployed his captain here and his Youngblood here, and his other 3 warriors all the way over here. He may have deployed them around this area and moved them out, but I think I would have seen them if they were running through here. So he probably deployed them here. Now that's a long distance between those two blocks of warriors in your warband, which means, as it happened, and just as an aside, not only was it a long distance to begin with, but he also moved his captain, his young blood, further away. And what that meant was these three warriors that he deployed over here could not, for at least 2 or 3 turns, come in and support their captain and their young blood. So it was easy for me to outnumber them because I had these two up here, and as you can see, the distance between around here and here is fairly much larger than the distance between here and here, or here and here. So as soon as I saw that the front of the battle was going to be the captain and the young blood versus these three warriors here, I immediately moved this sister round here to flank. And it meant that, 3 to 2 is a decent ratio, but 4 to 2 is even better, and that's what it ended up being. And it was important that I had that ratio because, as you saw in that battle that we just had, although I had, 70+% chance to hit, I was missing a lot. And had the ratio of allies to enemies been a bit more equal, I very well may have lost that particular front because of bad luck. So always keep your... It's fine to have segments of warriors in different areas, but always keep at least... never have one warrior off by themselves, unless you are absolutely certain they can handle themselves, no matter what circumstances they get into, and very few heroes or even impressive warriors can do that. You might be able to get away with it with the Sisters of Sigmar Impressive Warrior, or possibly the Chaos Spawn, but even then, it's sort of a risk you don't need to take. The second thing is, even though you've got these distinct segments of your army or your warband, you can still keep them relatively close together so that they can support one another if shit hits the fan, as it did here. So if he'd say, for example, he had his captain here, his young blood there, which isn't the best, but let's just say that's what happened. If he had his other 3 warriors around this area, not only would I not been able to see them, especially if they were in the eaves of this building, so there's no line of sight for my warriors up here, he could have moved them in. I would have moved in as well, because under the information I had at the time, I was only fighting 2 warriors. And then suddenly 3 warriors come in from behind. And now it's a much more even fight. But as it happened, I had 4 warriors to his 2, even though they were his most powerful warriors. I also had my 2 most powerful warriors in that fight as well. And it didn't end up particularly well for him. But I hope Noodles learned some things. We're going to be playing another practice match at some point later in the week, and I'm hoping to record that as well. I'll see if I can somehow disable the in-game sound for myself, so I don't hear him, or you don't hear my muffled microphone voice as well. But I hope you all learned something from this, and I suppose the same old tenets of playing Mordheim that have always true still apply, no matter what warband you're playing. And that is, keep your units together, keep them supported, don't be afraid to run away if the odds are against you, and always trying to achieve the secondary objective, which we didn't have this time. So, thank you for listening and watching. I'm going to be putting up a regular video sometime later in the week if I have time, and if I can get that full version of Adobe Elements. One other thing I should mention, and once again, this isn't a plea or a begging for support, but I do have a Patreon, and that's where I put all these videos. So if you think that they're worth something and you can spare it, I would love for you to contribute, because it is, you can't understand how significant it is, even for one of you to say, hey, I think what Rhys is doing is worth $5 a month. I get $5 worth of entertainment out of what he does, and I can spare the money. So, but as I said, if you can do it, do it. If you don't want to do it, that's completely fine as well. I'm not going to be disgruntled at you or feel disappointed in you or anything. I will do these anyway because I enjoy doing it and I enjoy making them for you. So don't feel obligated is the long and the short of that. But the proviso to that is, if you like what I'm doing and you think it's worth money, and it's money that you can spare so that I can continue making this kind of stuff and afford the various programs and equipment that come with the territory, give it a look. The Mordheim videos aren't the only thing I have on Patreon. I'm planning on creating a fairly vast swathe of different content, and the Mordheim videos will fit into that, but I've also put up the first 7 chapters of the book I'm working on. The title of it is The Dying of the Light, so give that a read as well while you're on there, and see if that's something you'd be interested in as well. Anyway, sorry about the ending with a bit of housekeeping, a bit of administrative stuff, but thank you for watching once again, and I'll see you next time. Bye!